Is everybody ready to go live in Mad Max land? I'm ready. I've been preparing for this my whole life. Are we watching the erosion of society in front of our very eyes? Maybe. Some political scientists and experts agree that we are living in a state of populism and that two defining features are anti intellectualism and anti establishmentarianism. That maybe some of our leadership, and this is not beheld to, you know, progressive ideology or conservative ideology. This can happen on any side of the political spectrum. But when you start hearing like them versus us talk and that side and this side, instead of talking about the nation holistically, you can tell we're being guided by some form of propaganda. And if you start to see evidence of it in society, then maybe you start to believe like I believe. Well, today I opened up the news and it turns out that nurses are in an uproar. That they are no longer being defined as a professional field by the Department of Education. Educators, architects, audiologists, physical therapist, physician's assistant, and so on are now being removed from the list of people who get loans, I guess, by the Department of Education and also something to do with debt forgiveness. I guess the counter to that would be that those people should pay their own way and that they should not have debt forgiveness paid for by taxpayers, and this will reduce the cost of the overall burden on society. But just kind of weird because we usually save out the non-government organizations and we usually help out banks, I guess, when they go bankrupt. Circa 2008, they usually make away with the loot. They don't. I'm assuming they don't do nearly as much on a daily basis to save lives, which is, I think, what nurses do. They assist in saving lives, and they're not necessarily the most celebrated people. Not to mention, also, I read that they're batting at about 120 average in IQ. That's borderline genius. They're really smart. They could do a lot of other occupations. They could take that intelligence, pack it up, and go do something in the private sector. But they are also people who rate incredibly high in emotional intelligence and choose to go back to work every day. Some of them, like people working the counter at the ER, probably living in an incredible amount of stress. Nobody comes to the ER because they're happy and having a good time. They're there because they were shot or maimed or stabbed or have a pancreatitis or, inflamed whatever inside their body. So they're already upset, and then they go and take about 10 to 15 minutes of that person's time at the window and vent and maybe even shout at them. And that's just one person. They're dealing with hundreds of people on a daily basis, and they're taking on all of that stress and trauma and remaining polite and calm throughout the process. However, there's nothing you can do about your mind not perceiving that stress and that trauma in such a way that affects you. They're giving up part of themselves selflessly to help us. And of course, I hope they're handsomely compensated for the job. I'm not sure what, nurses make. I'm not a pocket watcher. But I hope they get paid handsomely. Same thing with educators. I think we're moving away from the time of like the very slim scope and time that we had from the first manned flight at Kitty Hawk to the use of nuclear energy to the space race to the advancement of science, technology, engineering, and math, and us celebrating the Steve Jobs of the world and, the smart people. We used to like them. Now we're being moved in a direction, propagandized, to dislike the intelligent, to put down the intellectual, to put down the establishment and everything that accompanies it. And I think we're going to get knocked back to the Stone Age. This is for sure going to deter people from taking on careers in the professional nursing field, which means more people are going to, exit stage left for sure. But that was a very brief period in time, maybe about 100 or 110 years or so, that we celebrated intelligence for the large dominant part of human history. We were just throwing rocks at each other and being feudal, weren't we? Empires conquering empires. I mean, that was only a couple hundred years ago, if maybe even less in some occasions when you look at it being done in a more clandestine way. Yeah, I think we're headed towards the beginning of the end. What do you think? Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.